And welcome everybody to the Fantasy Savvy Show with your host Steve D'Angelo, back for Week 17 NFL picks. Hope everybody had a great Christmas, and as we look for the new year upcoming on Monday, got some bowl games going. Got the Alamo Bowl between Oklahoma and Arizona going. We had the Pop-Tarts Bowl earlier. Almost went to that game in Orlando, but didn't go. Had to get ready for this show. Lots of prep. No, I'm just kidding. Did a show earlier with Anthony and Matt on the Face Off Sports Network. Go check that out. fffaceoff.com, Face Off Sports Network on YouTube. This is the Fantasy Savvy Weekly Show with your host, Steve D'Angelo. We got NFL picks. We got 10 picks this week. Last week was not good. We got our picks in on Wednesday before I headed out of town. Went 4-7. But still 57, 51, and 2 on the year, 52.7%. So just winning a little bit of money for the year. And we'll go all the way back to week 2. Week 2, 2-1. Week 3, 6-0. Week 4, 3-2. 3 straight winning weeks. Week 5, 3-6. Week 6, 2-4. 2 straight losing weeks. But then week 7, nice 7-2. Week 8, 3-5. Week 9, 1-3. Week 10, 3-4-1. Week 11, 3-5, so 4 straight losing weeks. But then we hit week 12, 7-2. Week 13, 3-1. Week 14, 7-4-1. So 3 straight winning weeks, but then 2 straight losing weeks now. 3-5 in week 15 and 4-7 last week in week 16. So a bit of an up and down season, but we still are on the plus side, which is good. Again, this isn't easy, but we're still winning for the year. Putting all our picks out there, and we're on the plus side. So let's get into Week 17's picks. We'll recap this Jets-Browns game real quick. Fantasy Super Bowls, obviously, for this week as well. So that's huge. Maybe you threw Joe Flacco in there. Maybe you had Breece Hall, but we'll get into it on the other side. Fantasy Savvy Weekly Show with your host, Steve D'Angelo. Follow me on X at Fantasy Savvy. Let's go. Welcome to the Fantasy Savvy Weekly Show with your host, Steve D'Angelo, discussing high-stakes fantasy football, NFL picks, and much more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Okay, we're back. Fantasy Savvy Weekly Show with your host, Steve D'Angelo. Every Thursday, last week we went Wednesday because of the holidays, but usually go after the Thursday night game. So we'll recap the game we saw tonight between the Jets and the Browns. Yeah, the Jets and the Browns, sorry. What the hell am I talking about? In Cleveland, Flacco starts the game hot. He goes 19 of 29, 309 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. Throws a touchdown to Jerome Ford, 2 touchdowns to Jerome Ford, one touchdown to Elijah Moore. And Elijah Moore, prayers up for him. He took an ugly hit to the ground. CJ Mosley hit him hard. His head hit the turf, and he came out of the game. But he did get into the end zone, go 5 for 60. And Njoku continues his hot streak. You had to use David Njoku in this game. The guy's been on absolute fire. 6 for 134 on 8 targets. So he's been money in the bank. And finishes the season awesome in your fantasy Super Bowls. If you use Flacco, you got a nice game out of him. If you use Jerome Ford, you got a nice game. Even Kareem Hunt, again, gets into the end zone. So Kareem Hunt was sitting there, free agent wires. Who's going to pick this guy up? Cleveland picked him up, later in the season, and he's been a nice asset for them. He's played pretty well, considering, they cut him and they brought him back. So, maybe used him. On the other side, Breece Hall, 13 of 84 on the ground. Holy shnikes. He's picked off Arizona. Guy had it. Can he take it to the house? Go! Oh, it's a pick 6 for Arizona. Oh, no, he didn't get in yet. Cut it up! What do you really got it? Yeah, he got it in the end zone. Okay, touchdown Arizona. So now it is 24-20. They went from Oklahoma went from the zone of 10. Picked off. Arizona runs it in here in the Alamo Bowl, 24-20. Good for the over. Good for Arizona bettors. And then Breece Hall, goes 9 of 42 for a touchdown. So Breece Hall has been catching check down after check down after check down after check down because the Jets' offensive design is not good. The Jets' offensive weapons, besides Breece and Garrett Wilson, is very, very underwhelming. And, you got Trevor Siemian in there, dinking and dunking. Freaking Tim Boyle dinking and dunking. Even Zach Wilson, they cut his balls off last year, so he was dinking and dunking too. So a lot of Breece Hall just catching dink and dunks. But early in the game, he goes for that 21-yard touchdown, gets 9 targets. So beautiful day for Breece Hall. 2 weeks ago, hopefully he didn't knock you out in the first round where he had 2 fantasy points like he did in my dynasty league. And then the last 2 weeks have been money in the bank for Breece Hall. Arizona going for 2 here, down 24-19. Guys got all day. Scramble to the left, fires is wide open, 2-pointer. 24-21 here. 2 seconds left in the third quarter in the Valero Alamo Bowl. All right. And then Trevor Siemian, 32 of 45, a touchdown pick. Nobody's using Trevor Siemian. Maybe in a super flex league, possibly. But, I wouldn't even want to use him in that type of league. But it still wasn't a terrible day. Trevor Siemian, 45 passes. Garrett Wilson, 5 for 50. I benched him in the one league I had him in the Super Bowl. Conklin, 5 for 45. Xavier Gibson, 4 for 33. Xavier Gibson might be something for the Jets next year, possibly. Not a bad little player. I kind of like him. Good as like a 3 or 4 receiver. It'd be nice to keep him. Good story. Obviously, we saw Hard Knocks. He's the last guy basically that made the team. But the story of the game is the Browns. Now they're in the playoffs, 11-5, 8-1 at home. Led by their defense. We've seen them beat the Niners this year with PJ Walker. Flacco has been slinging the ball around. This game only 29 attempts, but still 300 yards. The Jets defense, you could just tell they were a little demoralized, after such a long season, frustrating season for them. They weren't tackling right. They missed tackles left and right on Ford and even Elijah Moore and Njoku. So, a little bit of a letdown. They're tiring up, a little demoralized down the stretch here. The defense has done a lot all season long. You'd like to see them play a little more effort, solid to get his defense up, especially since he's the defensive guy. And the offense is going to suck, but it is what it is. We got one more season of Aaron Rodgers next year in this whole freaking Packers brigade. We'll see how it does. Hopefully the Jets improve the offensive line. They can get another receiver alongside Garrett Wilson. And, we'll see what the Jets can do with, Aaron Rodgers at 41 years old or 40, whatever he's going to be next year. I'm not expecting much. I'm not going to expect anything at all from the Jets. If we can get into the playoffs, it would be freaking awesome, but who the hell knows? Probably come up a game short knowing that the Jets. So, but Browns on the other side, let's see how far they can go with Joe Flacco in this defense. Njoku's getting the mix. They got a nice run game. They'll get Amari Cooper back. Amari Cooper was not in this game after going absolute nuclear last week, had a heel injury, so they sat him out. They knew they were going to beat the Jets. They didn't need him to play. Killed fantasy owners, but hey, he carried you last week, probably advanced you in a lot of best ball leagues. Take it for what it is. At least he won you something. All right. So let's get into the picks for week 7. And last week, like I said, wasn't good, but we're still positive on the year. We're at, see it below there, 57.51 and 52.7% for the year. Just a reminder to follow me on X at Fantasy Savvy. Like and subscribe to the show. But let's get into it. We got 10 picks this week. A lot of favorites. Just the way it came out. I usually don't take a lot of favorites. I usually have a pretty good mix. But, this is just the way it came out. So,
legends of this hard muscle life, and there's poetry in each season made of sweat and strife. Winds whisper of high hopes. Victory is in the skies.
First pick here, guys, is going to be
glory in her eyes.
Patriots Bills. We're going to skip the Lions Cowboys game. We're going to skip the Lions-Cowboys game on Saturday. I mean, that game could kind of go either way. I don't really know which way it's going to go. I could see the Cowboys winning that game by a touchdown. I could see the Lions winning outright. The total is 52.5. It's certainly going to be a nice game to watch on Saturday night. But I don't have a pick for that. The first pick is going to be a revenge game here for the Bills against the Patriots at 1 o'clock on CBS on Sunday. Minus 13. Bills, obviously, they have a really good chance now to, if they win this game, they're probably in the playoffs. I know it's like a 97% chance they're in. So I expect them to win this game. I expect them to come out firing on all cylinders, offensively, defensively. Belichick was talking about how freaking quarterbacks get into a zone at certain points of the career, and he was referring to Brady, and Allen's kind of doing that now. And he's certainly right. Allen, 4 straight years of 40 touchdowns, first player in NFL history to ever do that. To me, he's the MVP of football. Plus 1,400 still. Get your bets in. I took it a couple weeks ago at plus 2,000. He wins this game. Ravens beat the Dolphins. They play for the division last week of the year. Why can't the Bills win the AFC East and Josh Allen win the MVP? So I would bet both of those right now. Still good value on both. So I expect the Bills to come out, smack the Patriots in the mouth. Again, they lost earlier in the year. Revenge game. Ever since Dorsey's gone, they've been playing much better, getting Jimmy Cook involved. So Bills, Allen goes all out. Their defense makes a lot of plays on Bailey Zappi. And Bills win this game by 14 to 17 points for pick 1. All right. Not sure how that music sounds in the background, if it's too high, if it's too low. Pardon me. I fired my producer, Hammy Simpson. He was caught doing illegal things over the holiday, so I had to get rid of him. Just kidding. I don't have a producer, but this is a self-edited show, so forgive me if it's a little off at times. All right, pick 2, Falcons, Bears. We're going to stick with the Bears here. Wow, Oklahoma quarterback throws a pick. So here comes Arizona. But we're going to stick with the Bears here at home, 6-9, 4-3 at home. The Falcons, 7-8, battling. Still have a chance at that NFC South. Their playoff hopes are still alive after a big win last week at home against the Colts, winning 29-10 before losing, with Ritter in Carolina in that slop fest 9-7. So, Falcons are still alive. Taylor Heineke's, the quarterback now, which I think is better for them. Obviously, you got Bijan. Everybody's hating on Arthur Smith because he's not using Bijan right. You got Drake London. You got Pitts. A lot of talent on offense. Their defense can play. Obviously, they got a good defense. But I think the Bears here, a lot of talk. Justin Fields. Should the Bears keep him and keep adding pieces? They got the number 1 pick. You could add a lineman. You could add Marvin Harrison Jr. They got a couple picks in the first round. Probably take Marvin Harrison if they don't take a quarterback. If they go quarterback, do they take Khalid Williams? Do they take Jaden Daniels? Do they take Drake May? Do they move off of Justin Fields? Is that the right decision? I don't think it is. I think you continue to build around Justin Fields. We've seen him have success in the NFL. We've seen him play big against, mostly everybody. This guy can do things a lot of other quarterbacks can't do. Everybody's, chiming for Caleb Williams. Saw him fold in big spots this year. Smaller quarterback than Fields. How is he going to fare in the NFL? I don't know. I know how Justin Fields could fare, and I know if you continue to build the offensive line and get more receivers and continue to build that defense, their defense is playing good football. So I think their defense is the difference here in this game against Taylor Heinicke and the Falcons. I know the Falcons are playing with more on the line. The Bears are, basically out of it at this point. But I think Fields has a big chip on his shoulder. He wants to go out right his last game in Chicago, potentially at home. So I think Fields and the offense, DJ Moore, they're getting Donta Foreman back this week. That 3-headed backfield's nice. Their defense, the way they play. So I'm going to go Bears -3 to get it done against the Falcons at home for pick 2. All right. Pick 3. We are going to take an underdog, and it's the only underdog of the week. Pass interference on Oklahoma, so it's going to be 1st and goal for Arizona, down 24-21 here in the 4th quarter in the Alamo Bowl. In case you're watching this show and you tuned out. Yeah, we're going to go with the only underdog of the week, and it's going to be the Cardinals. Now, I would watch that Eagles-Giants game on Christmas. The Eagles looked flat. Their offense looked a little flat. Their defense is just letting up big plays. It's just not the same Philly team that we're, saw last year. So
the players' reality is one.
I am going to just fade them a little bit here, and I think the Cardinals can kind of backdoor this and kind of sort of keep it close and cover the 12 points that I'm getting with Kyler Murray, James Conner, Greg Dortch, Trey McBride. We'll see if Marquise Brown plays. Michael Wilson is back for his 2nd week, so he gets a little bit more of a fly. This Eagle defense does not look good. I think Kyler Murray could make some plays, and he could put up some points and keep it somewhat close, and maybe possibly backdoor it. So I'll go Cardinals plus 12, and I'm also going to take the over. I think the Eagles, they could still score points, obviously. They got A.J. Brown, good week for him. In fantasy leagues, it should be Devonta, DeAndre Swift. If you stop getting the tush push, robbing him of touchdowns. Last year was Jamal Williams. This year was the tush push. But 48.5, look at the Cardinals scores against the Niners, 45-29. I think it's something similar to that. And then even Philly last week letting up 25 to the Giants, putting up 33. So I could kind of see, something like that again. A score like 33-25, maybe 38-25 or 31-27, something of that nature. But I like the game to go over the 48.5. So that's going to be pick 3 Cardinals plus 12 and pick 4 Cardinals Eagles over 48.5. Pick 5 could be a little bit of a, maybe too easy of a pick. I don't know if you could call it too easy. This is a big divisional game between the Bucs and the Saints. And, obviously, the NFC South is still up for grabs here in the last 2 weeks. The Bucs have already beaten the Saints. I'm pretty sure if they win this game, they can clinch the NFC South. Yes, they indeed will clinch the NFC South if they win this game, and a playoff berth, obviously, if they beat the Saints. These two teams played earlier in the year, and the Bucs won 26-9 in New Orleans. Baker had 3 touchdowns, 246 yards. Derek Carr struggled, just 23 of 37. So you could say revenge game for the Saints, but the Saints, typically play better at home, and the Bucs, wipe their ass basically. Wipe the freaking floor clean, rather, I should say, in New Orleans. Saints 3-5 on the road. Tampa 4-3 at home. Baker Mayfield 26 touchdowns, 8 picks, 3,600 yards. Carr only 19 touchdowns, only 8 picks. Olave, nice connection going there now. Rashid Shaheed starting to get in the mix. Again, deep threat. Nice matchup here against a Bucs team, a Bucs secondary that has kind of struggled this year. A little bit better of late, though, against Green Bay and against Jacksonville. They're on a 4-game winning streak. Saints lost to the Rams 30-22. The Rams kind of let them back in the game late. Then they beat the Giants. They beat Carolina. They lost to Detroit at home. They lost to Atlanta on the road. That is the Saints. So -2.5. I mean, with a chance to clinch the division at home, the way the Baker's playing, you got Mike Evans, who's having an unreal year. Amazing year considering he lost Brady, 73 catches, 1,163 yards, 13 touchdowns. A lot of people thought he would be worse this year. He was a great value pick in fantasy football. Rachaad White's been nice. Chris Godwin's getting going the last 2 weeks as well. But I think that's also big. And, the Saints, they moved the ball a little bit. And, Carr just has a tough time putting full drives together. I think I'm not a big Todd Bowles fan, but I think he's probably a better coach than Dennis Allen and probably a better defensive coach as well. So I'm going to go with the Bucks here at home to clinch the division. It's just 2.5. I know I think it was 3, and it dropped down, but I'm still going to go Bucks. Again, maybe it'll seem a little too easy, but sometimes, it's not like the Bucks are a great team. They're 8-7, so I just like the way they're playing a little. Mayfield seems like he's getting a little more consistency now. This team's getting more consistent. Again, 4 straight. So I'm going to go with the Bucks minus 2.5 for pick 5. And we're not taking the Raiders. That's the Autumn Wind, the Raiders song. We are going to take another West Coast team here. Big favorite, bounce back spot against the Commanders. And I'm pretty sure that Jacoby Brissett is going to get the call here for the Niners. Jeez, we shut that off. Yeah, Jacoby Brissett is going to get the call here for the Niners. I mean, for the Commanders, and he's played well. Came in 2 weeks ago. Led a couple touchdown drives. They went back to Howell last week. Then they brought in Brissett late against the Jets, and he did fairly well once again. So I think at this point, Rivera just wants the best product on the field. Sam Howell has kind of fallen off a cliff. He's not the future answer of this team. I think that's, kind of shown. He's just way too consistent. He's way too volatile, way too turnover prone, inconsistent. So Jacoby Brissett, nice veteran there. Obviously good weapons with McLaurin, Dotson, Samuel. We'll see if Brian Robinson can get back. But the Niners, after getting smacked around a little bit at home by Baltimore, losing 33-19, 12.5. I'll take the Niners here in a bounce back spot. I just can't see 2 weeks of the Niners struggling, especially against a porous defense like this that just allowed 30 to the freaking Jets, 28 to the Rams, 45 to Miami, 45 to Dallas, and 31 to the Giants. There's no way, the Niners don't really dominate here on offense. So if you're going against Brock Purdy, if you have Brock Purdy or McCaffrey, these guys should have nice fantasy days. We might see Jordan Mason here late in the fourth quarter punching in touchdowns. So good bounce back spot for the Niners again. When the Commanders played Dallas, they lost 45-10 on the road, but they lost to Miami at home 45-15. So I could see another blowout here. So I'm going to go with the Niners minus the 12.5 against the Commanders, even with a little bit better of a quarterback in Jacoby Brissett for pick 6. Pick 7. We're going to go with the Ravens. Now, Ravens, maybe you could say, a little bit of a letdown spot after, that big game against San Fran. Maybe a little banged and bruised up, but it's really the Dolphins that are banged and bruised up. Jalen Waddle, high ankle sprain. Doesn't look like he's going to play. Mostert's a little bit banged up. Tyreek's still banged up a little bit. Even Tua's on the injury report. So I'm going with the Ravens here, -3. I think they're the better football team. Their defense is going to bring pressure to Tua. I think Lamar, and I like the way the Dolphins defense is playing. They're definitely playing better since they got Jalen Ramsey back in the lineup. But I think Lamar can make enough plays. Zay Flowers, Beckham, likely, Gus Edwards, Justice Hill. But basically on the back of their defense, kind of what they did against San Francisco. Now, if the Dolphins came out and won this game, it wouldn't totally surprise me. But I really just think that the Ravens are going to win this game, and it's going to set up a Week 18 Bills-Dolphins for the AFC East after the Bills beat the Patriots at home. So I'm going to go with Ravens at home, -3. to take this one down. And the Ravens, Lamar Jackson is going to be right in that MVP race. Obviously, if he comes off beating the Niners and beating the Dolphins. But again, I still think Josh Allen is the more deserving. 40 touchdowns compared to 24. I know his team's record is not as good, but the Ravens defense has been better than Bills all year. Bills have lost a lot of close games. But again, if Allen wins that AFC East, it's going to be really close, I think, between Lamar and Allen. And, I think the value is with Allen right now. Obviously, Lamar is like minus 170, while Allen is still plus 1,400. But that could come down a lot in the next 2 weeks. But still, Ravens minus 3 here to get it done for pick 7. Pick 8, we saw these two teams play a couple weeks ago with Case Keenum quarterbacking the Texans. But now they get back the golden boy, CJ Stroud, rookie of the year. Forget about it. You can't even get any value on betting him rookie of the year. It's a clear-cut winner. Excellent season. Ohio State quarterback, picked 2nd. Although Bryce Young's starting to play a little bit better now. Starting to come up a little bit. 2 touchdowns to DJ Chark last week. But Stroud, 3,600 yards, 20 touchdowns, taking care of the ball. Just 5 picks. Coming back from the concussion. Tank Dell's still out. Noah Brown's questionable. But he'll have his boy Nico. Singletary's been running the ball nice. And Dalton Schultz as well is back in the lineup. So these two teams played a couple weeks ago in Tennessee. It was basically Tennessee's final chance to make the playoffs. They came off that win against Miami in Miami, 28-27, and they lose to Houston in overtime, 19-16. They were up 13-3. Their defense was actually playing pretty well against Case Keenum, but they couldn't get anything going on offense. Willie Levis was healthy. He couldn't get anything going. He got banged up in that game, and then Tannehill started against Seattle. Titans lose again. So I think Texans defense gets it done. Stroud puts up points with Nico, with Singletary, with Schultz, and they cover the 4.5 in this game. And the Texans, they're battling with the Colts and the Jaguars for that AFC South still. So obviously a huge, huge game for them. And I think they get it done. And I do think they end up winning the division.
A certain magic still lingers in the very name.
All right, so that is pick 8. Pick 9. We are going to go back to the West Coast. And now we're in the 4 o'clock session. Steelers, Seahawks. Seattle is giving 3.5 at home. And Mason Rudolph comes in. I doubted Mason Rudolph. The last we see of Mason Rudolph, he was freaking trying to take down Myles Garrett. And Myles Garrett rips off Rudolph's helmet, freaking swings it at him. Then Rudolph gets pushed down to the ground, calls the guy a bitch. So that was the last we seen of Mason Rudolph. Kind of reminded me of the Matt Damon in School Ties, the quarterback there. But he played well last week. I got to give him credit. He actually gave this Steelers offense a spark and gave freaking George Pickens a spark. George Pickens has the best game of his season. Going for 4 catches for $195 and 2 touchdowns. Rudolph goes 17 of 27, 290, plays clean football, 2 touchdowns, no picks. So, the Steelers, 8-7. They're still battling for the playoffs. That game saved their ass. But I don't think they're going to go to Seattle and win this game. Seattle had a huge win against Tennessee in Tennessee. They had another huge win against Philly. Jackson Smith-Jigba, obviously with that huge catch. So I think Seattle, with their offense against this Steelers defense, they'll make some plays. Kenny Walker, Metcalf, Lockett, Jigba, Geno. The defense can make a couple plays here. Mason Rudolph kind of, falters a little bit. So I'll give it the 3.5. I think Seattle gets it done here. Wins by 4, wins by 6, something like that. So Seattle minus 3.5 for pick 9. And the last pick, another bounce back. You know, it doesn't feel great taking them, but I think that the Chiefs do bounce back here, home against the Bengals. Jamar Chase calling out their corners, saying they're not that great. They're not no Jalen Ramsey. Whereas their defense, this is the best the Chiefs defense has played all year, pretty much. Since Mahomes has been there. Now, L'Jarius Sneed, I believe, is questionable in this game. That obviously would be a big loss, but I still like their defense here. Jake Browning showed some chinks in the armor last week on the road in Pittsburgh, had his worst game as a starter this year. You know, still threw for 335, but the 3 turnovers killed him. Chase is a little bit banged up. Sounds like he will play. He didn't play last week, which will be huge. And the Bengals definitely could move the ball a little bit, but I still think the Chiefs defense can kind of slow this offense down, slow them down. And I think Mahomes, the Bengals defense just got torched against Mason Rudolph and George Pickens. So I think Rashee Rice can make some plays here. Even Nick Mullins a couple weeks ago almost beat them. They barely won 27-24 in overtime, and he threw for like 280 or something like that in that game. So with Rice, with Kelsey, Pacheco, Mahomes, obviously, Andy Reid, this is going to be a bounce back spot. They lost to the Raiders at home, kind of sleeping. Maybe it was Christmas. They're with their families. This is a little bit lackadaisical and slow. I mean, we're all kind of like that, around that time. So I feel like the Chiefs, 4:25 Sunday in Arrowhead, bounce back, get the win, and cover the 7 points. All right, guys. So to recap for Week 17's picks, Bills against the Patriots minus 13. Bears home against the Falcons, and the Bills are home. Bears home against the Falcons minus 3. Cardinals on the road in Philly to cover the 12. Cardinals Eagles over 48.5. Bucks at home to clinch the division against the Saints minus 2.5. 49ers to bounce back off their loss against the Ravens on the road against the Commanders minus 12.5. Ravens minus 3 against the Dolphins. They keep it going without Jalen Waddle. A little bit banged up on offense. The Dolphins, Ravens keep it going there. Lamar improves his MVP odds. Houston minus 4.5 to once again beat the Titans, but this time with CJ Stroud and at home. Seattle minus 3.5 to slow down this Mason Rudolph, resurgence or whatever the hell you want to call it. But Seattle will get it done, minus 3.5. And then Kansas City to bounce back as well at home against the Bengals, minus 7. And Arizona just scores a touchdown here with 5 minutes left to go up 31-24 in the Alamo Bowl. So thanks to everybody for chiming in, for listening in. Follow me on X at Fantasy Savvy. We will be back for next week's picks. Crazy week, week 18. We'll sort it all out. We'll be back for the playoffs as well. I'll be back possibly tomorrow with Anthony and Matt on the Face Off Sports Network. This will be broadcasted on the Face Off Sports Network as well, Spotify, Apple. So make sure you head over to that, check that out, like that, fffaceoff.com. Still working with those guys, still a great site. So Fantasy Savvy on X. Everybody have a great weekend. Get outside, get to church, hang with family, keep it going. Everybody have a great New Year's. We'll see you next week. Take care.